architects fight you. Oddly enough, because, they designed a nice building and then some yahoo comes rolling in to put the smiley face on it, and for some reason they don't seem to like that.
Hey Islanders, and welcome to episode 87 of the Camano Voice. Today I continue my conversation with the owner of Archibald Glass. Welcome back, Jack Archibald. Hi, I'm Brandon Erickson, and you're listening to the Camano Voice podcast, where I interview folks around Camano Island and beyond. If you want to stay up to date on events, businesses, and even hear a little history of this area, subscribe to this podcast and share with your friends. Thanks for listening. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice, where we release a new episode every Tuesday. Today I continue my conversation with Jack Archibald. So if you didn't hear last week's episode, make sure you go back to listen to that one. Also, just wanted to throw a quick thing out there. Thank you again for continuing to support and listen to the Camano Voice. I've really enjoyed continuing to do these, and I've got some fun ones that I have planned coming up here. But yeah, I just appreciate you guys listening and for joining in. If you haven't already, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. It really does help me be found by other Islanders and other people that might be interested in this type of podcast. So be sure to share it with your friends, share it on social. And without further ado, here's my continued conversation with Jack Archibald. So I know you've done a lot of different projects all over the place, but do you have one that really stands out in your mind as like kind of your favorite one that like as a fun project and it turned out what you wanted and everything?
I think the one that stands out in my mind, and oddly enough, it's not the most artistic one, is the Everett train station clock. Okay. And went down there, and everything about that was frightening to me. And I kind of applied for it, and I won the project. But all they really wanted, they had a 9-foot diameter clock they were going to order, and what they really wanted, they said, was just do some stained glass inside that 9 diameter clock. And I thought, how kitschy is that? And so I kind of fought to turn this thing into a different project. And so what I suggested was we turn this into a sculpture, and the clock would be the center of this circle, and we would build this 2 wings out from it. And I don't know if you're familiar with this clock, but it kind of looks like, or at least the idea was, it looks like the front end of a locomotive, but kind of some of the clock part are modern, so it's abstracted out. Yeah. But we had Wesley Welding came in on this, and Rick Wesley came down with me to a meeting, and I had not understood that most of this, where this is going to be attached, I thought would be the typical, it's inside a window system. Well, we got down there and I realized it's not. It's going to be attached to a staircase. They got a grand staircase, and the catwalks go across, and it's going to attach to part of these. Now, this will tell you a lot about me. I apply for these things. I don't read the perspective very closely, I guess. I just think you probably won't get it anyway. And so the architects let me do this sculptural clock. Okay. And Wesley Welding, Rick and the boys, they built the whole framework out of stainless steel, which we could have done it in steel and painted it, but the train station, if you're down there, is all stainless steel. Okay. Usually stainless steel costs you a fortune, but Rick and Steve said, no, we'll do it for the same price. And so I went to the architects, I said, would you mind if I do it in stainless steel? And they were like, oh, yeah, it'd be great. They thought, what a guy, but it didn't cost me any different. Yeah. Then we had one of the boys, Kevin Rhinesmith, down there. He did these grindings on the stainless steel that gave it a kind of textural quality, and it bounces the light. Interestingly, it's like Karl Amatsky's sculpture down at the visitor center park. Yeah. And so it's about the same era too, which is why we did it. And so when we put this in, I can remember walking in, they were building the Everett station, and standing on the floor below where we're going to put this thing and thinking, I don't think so. I don't think I have the courage to go up this kind of, I just can't see. I just couldn't hardly imagine it. Anyway, we did it. And so it went in, and it was one of the few times working, the architects were really, really supportive. I have a history of all the architects fight you. oddly enough, because, gee, they designed a nice building and then some Yahoo comes rolling in and put the smiley face on it, and for some reason they don't seem to like that. And so these guys, though, worked with me through the whole thing, and it was a wonderful collaboration. So, and the train station is a nice train station.
Yeah.
And so when I walk in there, I guess I kind of like that particular work.
Yeah.
Even though, like I say, it's not the most artistic, but I did go back to photograph it. And the security guard was there, and I came in at night, and I was standing there photographing. He sees me with a camera and a tripod, walks over, and he says, he gets to talking about the glass and the clock. And he doesn't know I built the thing.
Yeah.
And he says, my buddies and I are always arguing. He goes, I think it looks like a front end of a train. And I said, what do your buddies think? He says, they don't think it looks like anything. And I said, tell your buddies they're wrong. I said, and he kind of looks at me. He says, did you make that? And I said, yeah, it's the front end of a locomotive. And the other one is you go up to the train station in Mount Vernon, which was a donation.
Yeah.
We gave them that. It is a train coming into the train station. But a lot of adults don't see it. The kids see it. They can see that thing just like it's the real deal.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how people, and one of the things that's fun about my kind of stained glass design, they don't really look like anything in particular. It's not realistic, but it's sort of a Rorschach. You can kind of see something in it. And when I ask people, what do you see? They always ask me, what is it?
Yeah.
And I go, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you. I don't know. It's really meant, what do you see in it? And some people like to play that game, and some people don't. And so it's interesting how people look at a particular.
Yeah.
It's oftentimes real surprising to me, that they'll see that in that, and I'll go, yeah, I can kind of see that too, Yeah. So that's kind of the fun of it.
Yeah. That's really cool. I love like the different art things I've seen of yours, just even locally here, like Islanders has that piece. And my dad's door now that has a piece on it. And
the Islanders, your dad commissioned that way back when, and he'd done that frozen explosion. I think he was had the drink, and so that was kind of a frozen explosion. And but that's a good example of that glass that changes look. It's now in the library, of course.
Yep.
And one side, if you're standing outside, it's real cold and icy, and so is the the metal cladding on the tower there that surrounds it. But inside, it's all ambers and warm, and it's that glass. And again, that's what makes some of these things interesting to me.
Yeah.
And it's part of the. What I learned over the years is how to use glass. So I'll go down, and a lot of times I'll be in a competition. I'm doing my pitch, and somebody will go, particularly in cities, Portland or some place like that. They'll go, "Who's your favorite artist? Who did you learn? I mean, who's your role model?"
Yeah.
And I'll go, "You never heard of them because they're glass guys. Role models for me aren't painters. They're really the guys that know how to use glass."
Yeah.
And in interesting ways. And so over the years, you're just kind of learning how to use light.
Yeah.
Is the real deal.
Yeah.
But the other thing about competing in the art world with stained glass, most everybody, I meet a few people though, but most everybody likes glass. I mean, it's sort of, universal. And so that gives me a leg up in competition. That if you're competing against somebody that's doing some abstract sculpture over here, well, you got this bright, shiny thing over here that, guess what? It gives you a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah. Nice. So how did the Visitor Center come about? How did that whole project come together? Because it's a lot of different artists that have put that together. And
the Visitor Center was an interesting coming together. A bunch of artists, Gunter and Matsky, and it originally started with Reverend Chumley. Michael Melnick lives down by us on the south end. And he got wind that they were kind of falling apart. The Chamber of Commerce, they had this little hut. They would hand out brochures. God knows they were just baking these poor old women down there. And he got wind that, it's sort of available to, you could join up and maybe do something with all this. So Jack and Carla, and they got involved in this. Jack became the president of the Chamber of Commerce, which is amazing. So a bunch of artists got involved. I wouldn't get involved to begin with. I thought, I don't want to go there. But we got going, and I said I will put in some stained glass. I'll donate. And I thought it'd be something small or whatever. But I sat with Dan Nelson, the architect on the project, and we ended up designing what's the front of that big X pattern.
Yeah.
And we did this abstract kind of glass work in it. So Jim Hall was our construction guy. He was a builder, and he donated his time, and he got the building pretty much up. And he decided, gosh, he's working with us, and I started volunteering. Working with us, he's going to be here for the rest of his life. He won't build another house he won't make a living. He'll die poor. And he said, I got to go. And I said, I said I built my own house. Now, this is a guy that didn't even know how to frame in a window originally, right? But I learned how to frame a house, and I was cocky. And I said, all right, I'll take it on. So I took it on. And I spent my entire summer down there, and probably a lot of that following fall and winter, and we built the thing. And if you look at it closely and look at some of the metal siding, you can see a guy that didn't know what he was doing probably put that up. So anyway, we had a lot of volunteers, and we got a lot of support, and we had a lot of critics too. I mean, if you're working there every day, you can't believe how many people drive in and tell you just how much they don't like it. And who's paying for this, Brandon? Who's paying for this thing? I don't like it. And you'd say, well, man, it's like your lucky day, because you're not paying for it. It's being paid with volunteer, materials and work. And they'd say, I still don't like it. Well, okay. There's a critic in every crowd. But we finally got it done. And it was, I don't know if it was warmly accepted at first. It had a little bit of art for everybody. It had some modern stuff, and it had the geese, that got stolen eventually. And it had, Carla's sculpture, which is interesting. She designed that sculpture, and it turns out that is kind of the negative space of the whole building. If you look at it, you'll see the wings, but those are really her sculpture. And none of us, until we did it, realized, so it's sort of serendipitous that this happened. But anyway, we got all the sculpture in. We got the sign moved back and redone. It was a lot more work than you'd ever dream. And a lot of politics and a lot of fighting. The Chamber of Commerce really, they wanted a visitor center, but they didn't really want an art park, kind of thing. And so there was a lot of tension, a lot of fights. And I had to finally join. I finally got on the board because if we're going to get this done, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we did. And so what happened then is, Brown and Cole owned the land behind this. The visitor center is really just a narrow little strip of land. It's really nothing.
Right.
And to turn it into something was kind of a coup in itself. Anyway, Brown and Cole said, if you can sell the 2 properties in the back, we will give you 3.3 acres to make a sculpture park. And I can't tell, some of us working on that, we would walk on that hill and just imagine, could we, our little fantasy was, can we extend the sculpture park maybe 10, 20 feet? Could we just ask them, we have to, and they're offering at the end to give us the entire thing back there. Oh, it was like, whoa. Well, the post office came in, they were going to buy one parcel.
Yep.
The Park and Ride, Mary Margaret was head of the transportation.
Yep.
She was instantly going to buy that part for them. So, okay, we're done deal. Except the post office went away. They stopped building new post offices. So what happened was your dad came in and bought, and it became commercial then. So then we end up with a sculpture park.
Yeah.
But what it told me, and maybe it was kind of wrong-headed, is that you do stuff like this and look at what you can accomplish.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, Lord, this is amazing. In retrospect, it was a little bit naive. But on the other hand, we did it.
Yeah.
And, some other ventures haven't been quite as, successful. But I still have this sense that, you can, you put your nose to it. You can create an art island if that's what you're intending to do. And that was what I intended to do, is that you could get this Mother's Day tour, studio tour. Few of us started that up. That became successful. You can donate some art to, glass to the visitor center, to the senior centers, and also bring in other people's art and create an art space inside, the Stanwood Senior Center or inside the Camano Community Center. We just put one in the new annex, the courthouse annex down there. So all that is kind of, it's just another piece of that puzzle that eventually you hope that you'll reach critical mass.
Yeah.
That you'll just kind of go, yeah, you've created this little cultural identity that wasn't here when you started. And, we'll see. It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
One step forward, one step back.
That's very cool. So then, on top of doing the art, the glass and everything, you also play music, right?
Yes. We started up in 2002. We started up the South End String Band. And all we intended to do at the time was just a bunch of us yahoos are going to get together on a back porch, drink some beer, and play some music. And I bet we didn't have 2 or 3 times before we had 15 people. We had this marching band, for God's sake. But eventually we kind of narrowed it down to 11 people. And we became a South End String Band. And for a while, we started playing. This was not my intention. I'm a shy guy, believe it or not. And the thought of going out and playing or singing in public was just, I can't tell you how frightening. But we started playing out a little bit. We played over at the Thai store parking lot. People come in and buy their beer and cigarettes and leave the car idling, and we'd sit there breathing that smoke. And so then we moved up to the Elger Bay store, kind of, and we had a nice little, outdoor thing there for just put it together, just say, you mind if we play outside? They didn't. We'd do it. And then we did it at the Hagen's. But we ended up, in 2004, we played, the Grange asked us, we're going broke. Would you do a fundraiser for us? And we said, yeah, we'll do a fundraiser for you. So we did, and it was a cold, rainy day in February, and I mean really raining, not a drizzle.
Yeah.
And we ended up with 7,000 people come to that thing.
Wow.
Now, wait a minute, was it 7? I think we made $7,000.
Okay.
Maybe that's
Still.
more like it. But, oh, yeah, it was hundreds of people came in.
That's crazy.
And stood in the rain. And we had to ask people to leave because it was a spaghetti dinner, $5. You got spaghetti dinner, you got spumoni dessert, and you got to hear a bad band. What the heck. And so they made enough money to stay afloat, the Grange. And so we started playing benefits. I mean, one of the things, I tell kids I meet that are starting out in music, I say, if you put on your own venue, even if you don't make any money, you can draw crowds, and you might not get rich doing it, but you can at least play for a lot of people. So we started playing for the Grange every year, a benefit. We'd fill the hall. We played for the Historical Society, and we still do, and we'd fill the hall. And Senior Center, we'd play for St. Pat's or for whatever event they had, whatever fundraiser, and we'd fill the hall. And it was like, oh, is that fun or what? And, we got better, and we're narrowed down to 5 people now.
Okay.
We've got 5 people, Mike Hilly and Don Malox and Monica Dinasha and Eric Schweiger is our fiddler.
Okay.
And we'll bring in guest people. Julie Campbell, had her on a podcast. She comes in and plays with us. And Eric's mom is a pianist. She comes in and plays with us. And so, but it has been a total hoot. And so in the course of it, I got better at banjo and even started building banjos and started, a couple of years ago, I sort of decided I might be a luthier. I'll just build myself some banjos and guitars. And I learned real quick that maybe you can build them, but that doesn't mean they're going to be great. And so, but it was a total fun and learning how to do that. And,
nice.
The band is kind of part of that community effort, that whole cultural thing, is that you can go play for, like I say, the Historical Society or the senior centers, whatever. And we played benefits for people that just needed fundraising, that sort of thing. And so COVID kind of shut us down. So we're hoping to come back pretty quick this summer and start playing again.
Nice. And then you touched on something as well, the Camano Island or the Camano Studio Art Tour. Then you said you were part of that, getting that going. And
I'm trying to think of what year that was, Brandon. Probably 98, 99.
Okay.
I think we had 10 or 11 of us, and the idea was that we would bring people in to see where the artists actually work.
Okay.
And so it was the studio tour, and we did it on Mother's Day, which is kind of a brilliant move.
Yeah.
It turned out, and we should do one for Father's Day, but that should be the craft show or a, boat building thing.
Yes.
And so we started out, and it was mildly successful. But like anything, it takes a couple of years to kick these into gear. But we ended up with we started out, like I say, with 11 venues, I think two or three galleries, and then there must have been 7 or so of us that had studios. Mm-hmm. I had 3 or 4 people at mine, and some of the other studios had other artists.
Yeah.
So it started out small, but it didn't take long before, you had all kinds of people applying, and we had to come up with bylaws, and we had meetings, and all we did was, debate and argue and make more bylaws and change the bylaws. But I think the last year that I was in it about 9 or 10 years, I think we had 50, 60 artists. We had, I don't know, must have been 25, 30 studios all over the island. And I know at our place, you could walk out on the highway and look down the thing a quarter mile, and it was nothing but cars. And we had 3,000 people come through on a 2 or 3 day tour. Yeah. It was amazing how many people came to this.
Yeah.
So I finally got fed up with the bylaws and decided the thing is running fine. I need to move along. And so I left that. And it's doing great. I mean, so what we're doing now, Shannon Kirby is a sculptress that lives down by us, and she was always in that studio tour with me. We decided a couple of years ago to start a small craft show. Okay. And so we're 2 years into it. Would have been our 3rd year during the COVID year, but it's a small craft advisory, and we do it down at the Floyd Norgard Cultural Center. Okay. And so it's just for fine art craft. Okay. And we had about 12 people or so, maybe 15 people, and everything from cigar box luthiers to really fine woodworking furniture to guys that made bad banjos to, Monica was in it. She made native beadwork and other Native American art. And so we were trying to build that. And if COVID settles down a little bit, we'll come back again this year and get the 3rd year in. But we want to do something like the Camano Arts Association did when we started the other show, and do it for craft. Yeah. Because, that's what we want to do.
Yeah. So is there a certain weekend that you guys are aiming for? Is that?
We were always doing it in August, and we wanted to tie in with Art by the Bay. Okay. And it became apparent Art by the Bay didn't have any interest in tying in with us. So we may do it a different time of year. If it's not going to be a joint venture, what the heck, we can do it whenever. Yeah. And so we may, if COVID's going on, we may push it back into the fall, and just because it'd be better if you don't have any of those concerns. Mm-hmm. And people wearing masks and standing 6 feet apart and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
All the things.
Yeah, all the things. All the things we're used to now.
Yeah. Nice. Well, very cool. And then the other thing I was wondering about, because it sounds like, so once you had started doing like some of the glass projects, stuff like that, at what point did you completely go, or maybe you didn't, like, did you stop working like at the hospital and other things and just focus strictly on the arts?
Yeah, it was like I was saying, that year that I took 2 years off to build a house. Mm-hmm. I was hoping that I would just come up with some sort of strategy of how am I going to make a living doing this. And that's when the Washington Arts Commission kind of kicked me in the butt and gave me that State Patrol project. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I started picking up other municipal public work and other states. And so that's when I and I'd already quit my job at but I thought, you're going to have to find another job, if you can't do it. So it worked out. I think of it as pretty lucky, is what I think. But it was joyfully lucky. Yeah. I look back and think, life worked out pretty well. And it was like, lucky or not, what the heck? Yeah. I'll take it. So
very cool. And then with that too, then, I throughout work and stuff like that, like you've got project stuff that you're working on, but like overall there's certain flow that you're just doing on a daily basis, for me, running the marketplace, or like my brother-in-law's business, and like then I was an engineer before that. But for you, you've got these really, really big projects, and then when those end, are you just looking for the next project? What do you kind of do as you go through these like really big projects?
Yeah, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of between projects time. Sometimes it'll be years. And sometimes you'll get 3 or 4, and boom, boom, and you're just, crazy. But mostly it's a lot of downtime, which is perfect for me.
Yeah.
I'd rather be kind of, okay, take time off from doing glass work and maybe go over and learn how to build a banjo or build some furniture or learn, do some writing or whatever. I don't want to just spend my entire month doing, glass.
Yeah.
But once I'm away from it a little bit, I'll think, it's time to go back in the shop and, work on your own designs and make them. I've got windows piled all over my studio now that, but that's what I do. So what the heck. And I like the downtime. And then you can spend time in the gardens or, whatever you're doing in the woods. I do a lot of wood cutting.
Okay.
And that sort of thing. And, beach walking. I mean, it doesn't pay well, but it's worthwhile.
Yeah. So do you feel like you always have a good, I guess, do you ever feel like you start getting worried, like, oh no, I need to start finding a project now, or?
Oh gosh, at the beginning, that was the anxiety, is that it's going to dry up, and when we had the recession back in what was it, 2008, I thought, here it is, and I'd been really doing good. I've been kind of staying very busy. I didn't have much downtime. I always had projects lined up. I might not be working on them all the time. But no, the recession hit. But for a few years, it didn't hit me because, like I said, they build these buildings. That money's all in the pipeline.
Yeah.
But then it stopped. And so I went a few years without much of anything then. But by then, I don't know, I felt like we'd kind of reached a point where, I'm 70 years old now. And so, we'd reached a point where you could be thinking about retirement at some point, and you're not going to go broke, and you're not going to lose a house, and you're not going to be kicked out on the street, and all those anxiety and fears you had when you were younger.
Yeah.
No. And so that was pretty great.
Yeah.
Not to feel that way. And so now, if something comes along, I'm totally happy. And if something doesn't come along, I'll do something different. And but my hand's still in, and I keep applying for things, and so we'll just see. And I've got the Stanwood job to do this year.
Yeah.
And they're building a new art center down at Stanwood on the old cobblestone, the old furniture store there.
Yeah.
It's going to become an art center.
Okay.
And I've offered them, whether they're interested in, that I'd give them a mural facing the highway if they want to put something in there as a donation.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it would. And, another little cultural component here. And if they're going to have, if you take a good look at that building, it's just kind of clad with this, crummy metal. Looks pretty awful.
Yeah.
And
it's got the letters missing and also
and the old sign up top that ought to just fall on somebody. But, the front is going to be nice on the cobblestone. That's the old historic part of it. And we're going to tour that tomorrow, my wife and I, and with Carrie, who owns the building or is donating the building, Carrie Richardson. And so I'm hoping they do take me up on it, because then we could put some glass that shoots out to the highway.
Yeah.
Again, once you do stuff like, I'm always after that public.
Yeah.
I don't want it inside somewhere if I can help it. I'd rather it be where the public's going to see it. Even if they don't go in the building, they can still see it. It's like the annex here on the island for the, county building. It's like you drive by it, there it is. You don't have to go in the building. It's got a piece of art on it. And, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
I like to think.
Yeah. No, it's great. Awesome. What do you kind of see as the future then? You've got some projects kind of floating out there, and
well, like the one I just talked about, and I'll probably look for other little spots for donations. And again, the Stanwood High School occupy a lot of time this year. That's going to be a big project, and we're going to put 3 murals in. One long one. When you walk in the building, it's got a big vestibule, and there's a whole glass wall between it and the Performing Arts Center. We're finalizing designs for that.
Okay.
We'll do that. Other than that, I'm not going to build more banjos. I'm not going to build any more guitars, but I like to play them, and I picture the band starting up again pretty soon.
Nice.
And spend more time in my gardens and at home.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing, and maybe do a little more travel and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm, like I said, I got my hand in the art world. I'm applying for different things, and so you never know when they're going to pop.
Yeah.
It's always a surprise, and I get a Washington Arts Commission one every 3 years.
Okay.
And so I think this is my 9th commission. I think it's the most commissions they've had down there.
Okay.
And so another 2 years, I can get another one if I want one.
Okay.
So if I'm still, able, I'd probably jump it. So.
Very cool. All right. Well, I like to end every podcast with some rapid-fire questions. The first one is, what purchase of $100 or less have you enjoyed the most over the last 3 months?
Well, I only go to the grocery store, basically, in the COVID last few months, so I guess it'd probably be some nice 6-pack of beer I bought it.
Nice.
That'd be it, Brandon.
Do you have a favorite one?
No, they're all good.
Okay. Pretend you have a friend coming from out of town. What would the first day look like here?
We go down to the parks. We go down to Camano State Park and over to Barnum Point.
Yeah.
I think that's what we do.
Yeah, and I just saw something where the sailboat had caught on fire down there.
No, I didn't see that. I knew there was one down there. I wonder if somebody, I can guess the kids probably decided.
I'm sure. Yeah. COVID boredom hits everybody.
Set her ablaze.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're boredom. I got a little park down that we take care of, Hutchison Park, and we got a little library. It's an old phone booth.
Okay.
And it gets vandalized pretty regularly.
Yep.
And so, I hope they don't burn it.
Yeah.
Stick with the sailboats, boys.
Yeah. Who is an interesting or fascinating person in this community that I should interview next?
Oh, there's lots. I would definitely, if you haven't interviewed Jack Gunner already, get Jack in here.
Okay.
And, but I would talk to Alan Hall. And he's got a friend, John, what's Leckie, the island. Okay. John Leckie, and get them both in together. They're friends, and they would tell you all about the history. They're old. But that would be an historical one. Jack would be the art one.
Okay.
That's who I'd recommend.
Nice. Very cool. And lastly, if you could have a message on a billboard right as you're driving on Camano Island, what would that say?
Whale crossing. Drive careful.
I love it.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much
Brandon,
for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me down here. It's a nice day. I'm going to go out and enjoy it now.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for doing these, by the way.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And Islanders, I will talk to you on the next one. Well, a big thank you to Jack Archibald for joining me on the podcast today, and thank you for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And for more information on this episode, you can go to CamanoCommons.com/EP87. That's CamanoCommons.com/EP87. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.